Welcome to the Pun Show. I am Macklen MacLoogie, your loyal host. I know that hearing defund the police might sting a little, but you don't have to put on the red light before hearing it out. If we don't do something, da domination in the streets will continue. And if we don't make major changes now, every breath you take may be your last. Yesterday was Sunday, so today must be Pun Day, June 15th. With all the movements to remove and rename Confederate monuments, I think we've finally reached our statute limitations. What's that I see? Oh, it's time for a pontification. Trump is planning a rally for this Friday in Oklahoma, specifically June 19th, specifically Tulsa. If you don't know the painful juxtaposition of those two details, then your schooling failed you by passing you without teaching you. Presenting now, the pun of the day. There's never a good time for a no-knock warrant. Not even if somebody's trashing the song Cherry Pie and you desperately want to say, no-knock warrant, because that song is trash, like the Louisville Police Department. Here to talk about code switching and racial identity, it's actor-improviser Japheth Gordon.
There was multiple times in my life, not just cops, but like a lot of people they'd be really cool with me until they realized that like one of their friends or daughters of friends were interested in dating me. And then it was like all bet. It's like, it's a great test for your racist instinct. Like when your family member is like, I'm marrying a Muslim. I'm like, what happens? What is that feeling happening to you? I got that a lot. Yeah. So I had a cop pull me over. It was a yellow light and against the wall. I've had a lot of against the walls. Like I'm 6'4". So, and I've been big since high school. I had like a goatee in 10th grade. I was like fully too old for my situation. Yeah, and I drove a car with dark tints and like a loud exhaust. It was the thing to do in the early 2000s, man. I was with this white girl and they pulled me out of the car. Ma'am, are you okay? What are you doing with a guy like this? And I was like what? Shut up. More pushing. Very, very violent. Actually, there was an incident here in LA when I was with my wife, and it's so interesting because I'm so used to it that once the cops had me out of the car and were like patting me down for nothing, for driving through LAX, I did 2 loops, they said, and I seemed suspicious. I was like, that's the airport, man. This is what we do. You got to pick somebody up.
You can do 2 loops accidentally. You're trying to exit and you accidentally go.
They were like, we saw you come through and then we saw you come through again. So we just wanted to see if everything's okay. Pop the trunk. So I get out, I have to pop the trunk. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm just trying to pick up a friend. So I wanted to call the person I was with, and my wife gets out of the car and she just starts like yelling she's a white woman, let me clarify. And she just starts yelling at the cops. And she's like, what are you doing? Watching through someone else's lens, seeing her eyes open, the drive home, she was shook. I was like, it's a normal shakedown. I'm used to this. I'm just happy I didn't go anywhere or get like taken to any dark situation. But it opened her eyes in a way that she was like, does this happen a lot? And we had a conversation the whole ride back from the airport to the Valley where she just talked to me about like, I didn't realize, and this was years ago when we first got married, but it's like she grew up in Alaska, not a lot of black friends, not a lot of experience with how the police deal with people of color in this country.
How do you identify, Japheth?
I identify as biracial. I'm in such a weird circumstance. I feel like me and Michael Key have a lot in common. I'm a hip hop head. I spent a lot of time in Black culture. I love saying the N-word like too much, Mac, like too much. Like I have to stop around my family sometimes because it's just it will just flow out of me at when I'm watching a good movie or when I hear a dope freestyle. I'm like, did you hear what this? And I go off. So like when you're mixed, it's very much like being cast in as an actor in Hollywood. They're going to tell you what you are.
When you walk into a room, how aware are you of what you're projecting, and how consciously do you try to tame it or curate it or control it?
Man, I do consciously think about it. I've interviewed for a few jobs where I know being the person of color is the important part. And that's unfortunate because I just want you to read my script, man. But I gotta come in like I'll do I will embrace the part of me that really enjoys hip hop culture anyway. So I'll throw on my Jordans. Like if I need to fix up my fade, I will before I go to a meeting like that. And I know in my head, this is blacker than I looked this morning.
What about the opposite, the flip side to that, in
Um,
terms of accentuating your whiteness?
oh, uh, hmm. I'm trying to think if that
There's
ever
never a
happened.
time to accentuate your whiteness, is there?
Man, I mean, I can like I will clean up diction and get really nice with word selection, and yeah. As a kid growing up, every brother I knew had a white voice. We would all just certainly start talking like this. every little black boy in the neighborhood is like, do the white voice. You do. Oh, hello. I'm going to work. I'm a responsible white man. And there's still a little part of me. I will do that. I think, man, I'm ashamed to say I may have whitened up a little bit when I first met my wife's parents because I knew they were a little apprehensive, and I've had that history of like, you're gonna you're gonna be intimate with my child, and you're not of the same culture as me. That is really has always been a big breaking point. I've been the lightest dude in a lot of rooms, and they'll call me Redbone, and like I'll get teased hard for being like light skinned by a bunch of black dudes, and it's lovely. I mean, I love it. Like I used to play pickup games in the park, and they'd be like, "Give me the white boy." I'm like, "I'm not." All right.
Wait, do you really love it, or did you grow to love it because it was too hard to keep rejecting it?
No, I love it because it always feels like a term of endearment. Like it feels like they know that I'm not accepted as a white person. So it's kind of like it's a dig. It's kind of like you're almost there. Look at you.
It's weird. I grew up in a very white southern Vermont, and I knew I was different, but I was never conscious of it. I felt like a white kid. And I don't know if that was me in denial or that was me purposely protecting myself from warning signs around me, or if that was just how sheltered and how supportive of a community I grew up in, that everyone accepted me for the most part, and they were all
Yeah.
white. So I felt like a white kid. I definitely feel like up until 2 years ago, I felt like I grew up with white privilege my entire life because I'm half white, and I felt like I passed for white-ish enough that. And only in the last couple of years have I started to question how much my otherness might have held me back. And I
Mm.
started to think more on microaggressions that I laughed off at the time. I laughed off my friends and people joking around calling me a terrorist for a long time. It genuinely did not bother me.
Yeah.
And now it kind of bothers me, especially when it's their only go-to joke. It's like, get some new material.
And it also feels a little bit punchy downy, whereas like black dudes being like, look at it, look at a half slave, half massa. Like they would bust my ass. Like it was always like, you a swirl, zebra. Look at you Oreo. I'd get like all of it. So after a while, but it felt like we're a clique of oppressed people, and you're not quite part of us. That feels okay. I don't know why. I'm like that. I like that you guys are making me earn it. I'll get it with the jump shot, and then you guys will accept me, or I'll tell a your mama joke, and you'll see, that we're all on the same level. So that never really it didn't bother me. Not in the same way that like the people of privilege would just I've had people throw keys at me and assume I'm a valet at a party a lot. Like a lot, because like why would you be at this party? That's happened to me a few times.
To be fair, though,
Like
you are actually a valet.
yeah, and I look very much like the guy who'd be like, well, what the Honda Civic. I'm thinking back to what you were just saying about you growing up and feeling like you were a white kid of privilege, and some of that assimilation I think is good, right? Isn't on some level that's what we want, is for you not to be like, listen, I'm Iranian, you guys, we don't do that. This is my culture. Like, there's definitely a made for Disney the made-for-TV Disney movie where that kid learning to have Thanksgiving is a good thing. You know, it's like, oh, he likes Britney Spears. This is fucking great. He's not oppressed anymore by his culture. But then there's this other side of me. Like, I know a lot of Native Americans. I have a strong connection to the indigenous First People, and they are always complaining about their culture being erased. They're always like, keep Indian blood. They will say that. Like, if you heard a white person say that, your hair would fall out.
And that makes me think of All Lives Matter, because what you were just saying, how keep Indian blood pure, for a white person to say that, that's ridiculous. But them saying that is the Native American point of view is a reaction to the realities of the world. Just like
Right.
Black Lives Matter is a reaction to the catalyst. So to counter it denies the catalyst.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I'm always worried about cultural identification becoming so strong that it's another boundary. You know, because I've had like those black guys who wanted me to work hard to be part of their clique. I've had black guys tell me, like, you shouldn't date that white girl, or why are you hanging out with that other. Like, I've had that kind of racism where it feels like, let's not close down the walls. These are cool people. They like me. They like you. These are the cool ones. But you'll get a lot of like, no. So I hate that idea of, in order to keep the culture strong, and the message of the history of oppression that is super salient and important, we have to kind of shut down the melting pot that I kind of would like to see, being, you know, a person that's already melted.
Well, that about does it for our show today. We're back in 6 days with an all-new episode. And in the meantime, Japheth and I ask you to consider donating to givewell.org. They help steer you towards the best charities with the least bloat, who do the most good work with your dollar. I'm Macklen McLugie, reminding you to help control the pest population, have cop budgets slayed and looted.